All right, so let's take a deep dive into Everest Kanto Cylinder Ltd's
Mm-hmm.
second quarter performance for fiscal year 2025.
Okay.
And looks like you sent over some pretty interesting stuff here.
Yeah.
We've got investor questions,
Mm-hmm.
the official letter to the stock exchanges,
Yep.
detailed financials, even their investor presentation.
Yeah. It's
It's the-
quite the information package.
Yeah.
Gives us a really solid foundation for understanding not just like what happened in Q2, but also how they're thinking about the future.
Yeah, exactly. And, I was just glancing over some of this stuff, and there are a few things that really kind of jumped out at me.
Okay.
For example, their revenue jumped a pretty hefty 22.7% compared to this time last year,
Uh-huh.
reaching a cool 367.3 crore rupees.
Wow.
They're attributing this to higher demand both in India and internationally,
Okay.
especially in the CNG segment.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you make of that?
Well, Everest Kanto Cylinder is a major player in the CNG cylinder market.
Right.
And, that sector is seeing a huge surge in demand. I mean, globally, countries are looking for cleaner fuel alternatives, and natural gas is a front runner.
Makes sense.
So it makes sense that a company like this would be riding this wave.
Okay, so they're growing, but are they doing it profitably?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what really matters in the end, right?
Absolutely. And the good news is it looks like they are.
Okay.
Their EBITDA margin, which basically tells us how much profit they're making from their operations, is sitting at a healthy 14.5%.
Okay.
And their profit after tax, or PP, which is the bottom line, has skyrocketed 47% year on year
Wow.
to 38.6 crore rupees.
Okay.
That's a significant jump.
Those are some pretty impressive numbers.
Yeah.
Seems like they've got a good thing going.
Uh-huh.
Now, you mentioned international growth.
Yeah.
Where exactly are they making these moves?
So they're generating revenue from a few different regions.
Okay.
India, the UAE, the US, and Hungary.
Got it.
But the standout performers, at least in terms of growth,
Yeah.
are India and the US. India, their home market saw a whopping 31% year-on-year growth in Q2,
Wow.
bringing in a hefty 238.8 crore rupees.
Okay.
The US market, on the other hand, generated 88.3 crore rupees,
Right.
a jump of 27.9% compared to last year.
So they're not just a big fish in a small pond.
Right.
They're swimming in multiple oceans and doing pretty well.
Exactly.
What about the other regions, like the UAE?
Yeah, so the UAE contributed 38.9 crore rupees in Q2.
Okay.
It's a respectable chunk of change.
Right.
But the growth there was more modest compared to India and the US.
Makes sense.
Now, there could be a number of reasons for this.
Yeah.
Perhaps the market in the UAE is more mature, meaning there's less room for rapid expansion.
Uh-huh.
Or it could be influenced by, regional factors specific to the energy landscape or even government regulations.
Right. Different markets, different dynamics.
Exactly.
But it's great to see that they're not putting all their eggs in one basket.
Yeah, geographical diversification is a smart move for any company,
Okay.
especially in a sector as dynamic as energy.
So we've talked about their overall performance and their presence in different markets, but I'm curious about some of the specific initiatives that are driving this growth.
Mm-hmm.
The news and updates section that you flagged in the investor presentation seems like a good place to start.
Absolutely. This is where we can glean insights into their strategic direction and how they're positioning themselves for the future.
Perfect.
And there are some really fascinating developments to unpack here.
All right, let's dive in. What caught your eye?
Well, one thing that immediately jumped out at me was their involvement in Nigeria's first CNG generator conversion project.
I saw that.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool, right?
it is.
But why is it so significant?
Well, it showcases their commitment to cleaner energy solutions on a global scale.
Okay.
Nigeria, like many developing nations, is facing challenges with energy access and reliability.
Uh-huh.
CNG, as a cleaner and often more readily available alternative to traditional fuels, has the potential to make a real difference there.
So Everest Kanto Cylinder Ltd isn't just providing cylinders. They're actively participating in projects that are pushing forward cleaner energy adoption.
Precisely, and this is a great example of how they're leveraging their expertise in CNG storage and technology to expand their reach and impact.
Okay.
Now, another intriguing development that's worth exploring is their involvement in the world's first CNG motorcycle launch right here in India.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was reading about this. It seems like a pretty niche market, though, right?
It might seem that way at first glance, but think about the potential here.
Okay.
India has a massive two-wheeler market,
Right.
and with growing concerns about pollution and rising fuel prices, a CNG-powered motorcycle could be a game changer.
Okay, I see what you mean. It's not just about the technology itself.
Right.
It's about tapping into a huge potential market and aligning with broader trends in transportation.
Exactly. And it highlights their willingness to innovate and adapt to evolving consumer needs. They're not just sticking to traditional markets, they're exploring new avenues for growth.
All right, so we've got global reach with the Nigeria project, innovative product development with the CNG motorcycle, and what was the third thing you mentioned?
Ah, yes. The big one. Everest Kanto Cylinder Ltd is providing a buffer vessel for the UAE's first high-speed green hydrogen refueling station.
Right.
Now, this, in my opinion, is a major strategic move.
Green hydrogen, that's all the rage these days.
It is.
But what exactly is a buffer vessel and why is it important?
Well, think of a buffer vessel like a giant pressure tank that helps regulate the flow of hydrogen at the refueling station.
Okay.
It ensures a smooth and consistent dispensing process,
Uh-huh.
which is crucial for a high-speed refueling experience.
Right.
And the fact that they're involved in this project in the UAE, a country that's heavily investing in green hydrogen infrastructure, speaks volumes.
It's like they're putting their chips on the table and betting big on hydrogen, right?
Exactly. They're positioning themselves as a key player in the emerging hydrogen economy.
Okay, before we get too carried away with hydrogen hype, let's take a step back and look at their financials in more detail.
Good point.
We've got their balance sheet and cash flow statement right here.
Okay.
What should we be paying attention to?
It's important to see if their financial health matches their ambitious plans.
Right.
Let's start with their capital expenditure.
Okay.
They've allocated an additional 50 crore rupees to set up new manufacturing lines at their Mundra project.
That's a pretty significant investment.
It is, and it tells us a couple of things.
Okay.
First, they're anticipating continued growth and need to increase their production capacity to meet future demand.
Mm-hmm.
Second, they're confident enough in their outlook to make such a substantial financial commitment.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about their debt?
Yeah,
Are they taking on too much risk to finance this expansion?
that's a great question, and it's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Their debt-to-equity ratio, which basically measures how much debt they're using compared to their ownership value, is currently quite low.
So that means they're not drowning in debt.
Right.
That's a good thing.
Right. Definitely. It means they're managing their finances responsibly and aren't overly reliant on borrowing to fuel their growth.
Got it.
And their interest coverage ratio, which indicates how easily they can cover their interest payments, is also healthy.
Okay.
This suggests they're in a strong position to meet their financial obligations comfortably.
Wow. It seems like they're really hitting all the right notes.
It does look that way. Strong financial performance, strategic investments in key growth areas, and a solid financial foundation.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but it feels like we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
There's so much more to explore.
You're absolutely right. And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll delve even deeper into Everest Kanto Cylinder Ltd's performance.
Okay.
Taking a closer look at their geographical expansion strategy and those innovative projects that have piqued your interest.
Fantastic. I'm already hooked.
Welcome back.
All right, so we touched on their growth in India and the U.S.,
Right.
but I'm curious to understand what's happening in their other markets.
Sure.
You mentioned the UAE earlier.
Yeah. Let's start there.
Okay, great idea.
Okay.
So remember, the UAE brought in 38.9 crore rupees in Q2,
Right.
which isn't anything to sneeze at,
Right.
but its growth is definitely more subdued
Yeah.
compared to the powerhouses of India and the U.S.
Right. And you suggested it could be because the UAE market is more mature.
Yeah.
Can you unpack that a bit more?
Sure.
What does that actually mean for Everest Kanto Cylinder Ltd?
Essentially, a mature market means it's already heavily penetrated with existing players and potentially has slower growth prospects.
Okay.
Think of it like a fruit tree. You've harvested the low-hanging fruit, and now it takes more effort to reach the ones higher up.
So does that mean Everest Kanto Cylinder Ltd is stuck in a rut in the UAE?
Not necessarily. It just means they need to find different strategies for growth in a mature market.
Okay.
It might involve focusing on grabbing market share from competitors, introducing innovative products, or even exploring niche segments.
That makes sense. It's all about adapting your game plan, right?
Exactly.
And remember, we're looking at just one quarter.
Right.
Things can shift quickly and new opportunities can emerge.
True enough. Now, let's shift gears to those news and updates that had me so intrigued.
Okay.
You mentioned the CNG generator conversion project in Nigeria,
Yeah.
which seems like a pretty big deal.
It is. It demonstrates their commitment to cleaner energy solutions on a global scale.
Right.
Think about the implications for a country like Nigeria.
Okay.
It's facing significant energy challenges, and CNG can play a vital role in addressing them.
Okay.
Plus, for Everest Kanto Cylinder Ltd, it's a chance to establish themselves as a leader in this growing market.
So it's a win-win.
Exactly.
You're helping to address a critical need while also tapping into a new market.
Exactly, and it aligns perfectly with the global push towards cleaner energy sources and reducing reliance on fossil fuels.
Now, what about the CNG motorcycle launch in India?
Right.
It seemed like an interesting but niche play.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Don't underestimate the potential of the two-wheeler market in India. It's massive.
Yeah.
And with rising fuel costs and growing environmental concerns, there's a real demand for affordable, clean transportation options.
So it's more about strategic positioning in a rapidly evolving market than just selling CNG motorcycles.
Precisely, Everest Kanto Cylinder Ltd is demonstrating their ability to innovate, adapt to market trends, and potentially capture a significant chunk of this emerging segment.
Okay.
They're not just a cylinder manufacturer, they're a solutions provider.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. They're not just reacting to the market, they're actively shaping it.
Exactly, and that brings us to the most fascinating development of all.
Okay.
Their involvement in the UAE's first high-speed green hydrogen refueling station.
Right.
This, my friend, is where things get really interesting.
Okay, I'll admit I'm still wrapping my head around the whole green hydrogen thing.
Yeah.
You mentioned they're providing a buffer vessel.
Right.
Can you explain in simple terms what that means and why it's such a big deal?
Imagine you're filling your car with gas. You need a consistent flow for a smooth and quick experience, right?
Right.
Well, it's the same with hydrogen refueling.
Okay.
The buffer vessel acts like a pressure regulator, ensuring that the hydrogen is dispensed smoothly and efficiently at the refueling station.
Uh-huh.
It's a critical component for a seamless refueling experience.
So it's more than just a storage tank. It's a vital piece of the refueling infrastructure.
Absolutely. And the fact that they're involved in this project in the UAE, a country that's betting big on green hydrogen,
Right.
shows they're serious about this technology.
Okay, this is all very exciting, but let's not forget about the numbers.
Right.
We touched on their strong financial performance earlier,
Yeah.
but let's dive a little deeper into those financials.
Yeah.
What are some key takeaways for investors to consider?
Excellent point. Remember those new manufacturing lines they're setting up?
Yeah.
That 50 crore rupee investment tells you they're not afraid to spend money to capture future growth.
Yeah.
They're anticipating continued demand and are positioning themselves to meet it head on.
That's a good sign. Companies that invest in growth tend to be the ones that outperform in the long run.
Right.
But what about their debt levels?
Uh-huh.
Could this aggressive expansion strategy backfire?
It's a valid concern, but remember their low debt-to-equity ratio.
Right.
That means they're not recklessly borrowing to finance this expansion.
Okay.
They're using a healthy mix of debt and equity, which reduces their financial risk.
Okay.
Think of it like this. If you're buying a house, it's generally considered wise to have a decent down payment.
Right.
It lowers your monthly payments and gives you more financial breathing room.
Yeah.
It's the same principle for companies.
Okay, that analogy makes sense. So they're not just, we're doing it in a financially responsible way.
Exactly. And their strong interest coverage ratio reinforces this.
Yeah.
They're generating enough income to comfortably cover their interest payments, which indicates financial stability.
So from a financial standpoint, it seems like they're in a pretty good position.
Yeah.
But what about the bigger picture? How do these investments in CNG, hydrogen, and global expansion play into their long-term strategy?
That's a great question, and one we'll explore further in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
These strategic moves suggest Everest Kanto Cylinder Ltd isn't just content with riding the current wave of CNG demand.
Yeah.
They're actively shaping the future energy landscape.
Okay, you've definitely piqued my curiosity.
Uh-huh.
I'm ready to dive into that future. Okay, so we've explored their financials, their global expansion, and even their forays into these really interesting new technologies like green hydrogen.
Right.
Now, for the big question, what does the future hold for them?
Yeah.
I feel like we've been kind of building up to this.
Yeah, it's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
While we don't have a crystal ball, we can use the information that we've gathered to make some educated guesses.
Exactly. So let's play a little game of future casting.
Okay.
Given their clear interest in the hydrogen economy, how do you see Everest Kanto Cylinder Ltd adapting to this evolving energy landscape over the next 5 years?
Well, they're not just a cylinder manufacturer anymore.
Right.
They're positioning themselves as a comprehensive clean energy solutions provider.
I like that it's a much broader playing field.
Right.
So could we see them expanding beyond just cylinders?
Yeah.
Maybe into storage tanks, transport solutions, even venturing into hydrogen production?
It's certainly within the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
They already possess expertise in high-pressure storage, which is directly applicable to hydrogen.
Right.
And their investments in projects like the UAE's Green Hydrogen Refueling Station
Oh.
suggest that they're actively learning and building relationships in this new sector.
And let's not forget their global footprint.
Right.
They're already operating in key markets like India, the USA, and the UAE.
Yeah.
Could they leverage these existing networks to become like a global leader in hydrogen solutions?
Absolutely. Their experience navigating different regulatory environments and adapting to local market conditions will be invaluable as the hydrogen economy develops on a global scale.
But it's not all smooth sailing, right?
Of course not.
What are some of the challenges that they might face?
Well, the hydrogen economy is still in its infancy.
Yeah.
There are technological hurdles to overcome, infrastructure to build, costs to bring down.
Yeah.
They'll need to invest heavily in research and development to stay ahead of the curve.
And what about the competition?
Yeah.
I mean, there are some big players out there,
Right.
including established energy giants who are also eyeing the hydrogen market.
You're right, the competition is fierce.
Yeah.
Everest Kanto Cylinder Ltd will need to be nimble, innovative, and perhaps even form strategic partnerships to succeed. They might consider acquisitions or joint ventures to gain access to new technologies or markets.
So it's a mix of opportunity and challenge.
It is.
It's going to be fascinating to see how they navigate this evolving landscape.
Indeed. But remember, they're not starting from scratch.
Right.
Their existing expertise in gas storage, their financial strength, and their early mover advantage in the hydrogen space give them a solid foundation to build upon.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the key takeaways that you want our listeners to kind of walk away with?
Well, first, Everest Kanto Cylinder Ltd is a company on the move.
Okay.
They're not just riding the wave of CNG demand.
Right.
They're actively shaping the future of clean energy.
And second.
They're not just about growth.
Mm-hmm.
They're about sustainable growth.
Okay.
They're managing their finances responsibly, investing strategically, and diversifying their operations.
And finally.
Keep an eye on the hydrogen space.
Yeah.
It's still early days.
Right.
But Everest Kanto Cylinder Ltd is making some bold moves that could position them as a major player in this emerging market.
Excellent points. And on that note, I think it's time to bring this deep dive to a close.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from their impressive financial performance
We have.
to their strategic initiatives and their ambitious vision for the future. It's been quite a journey.
It has. And remember, this is just a snapshot in time. The energy landscape is constantly evolving, and Everest Kanto Cylinder Ltd's story is far from over.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see how they navigate the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead.
So as you continue to follow Everest Kanto Cylinder Ltd's journey, remember to keep an eye on those key developments in the hydrogen economy,
Yes.
their international expansion efforts, and of course their commitment to sustainable growth. And with that, we'll leave you with this final thought.
Okay.
Given their investments in the hydrogen economy, how do you think the company will adapt to the evolving energy landscape in the next 5 years?
Food for thought indeed. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
Thanks for joining us.